right, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Key Games podcast here on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. We are back after a brief hiatus, and our topic this week is going to be discussing the dark side of fandom, the double-edged sword of growing and cultivating a community. But joining me, my co-host, indie game developer currently working on the game Samurai Pig, Joshua Reyes. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, my man. I took a little break. I was out of town for about a week or so up in the mountains, so I'm back and I'm rested and I'm ready to go. So, how are you doing today, Josh?
Doing all right. I've been feeling a little bit run down with everything going on. It's hard to tell if it's tiredness, COVID, or allergies, or some crazy
All of the
com.
above.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. That's the masochism difficulty right there. Hello,
definitely.
Amanda and Draken in
Hey,
chat.
welcome, y'all.
All right. So this is a topic we had planned for last week, but we're going to be doing it for this week. And of course, our kind of what kind of spurred this topic along was the recent announcement about a new Monkey Island game. Of course, Monkey Island being one of the games considered like the golden age of the adventure genre. Ron Gilbert, classic LucasArts, one of those games along with stuff like Maniac Mansion, Day of the Tentacle, and so on that kind of define the 90s adventure game design. So, long-standing series, huge fandom surrounding it, and it was announced, of course, about 2 weeks ago that there's going to be a new series or a new entry. All the developers are back, voice actors, all that good stuff. But of course, it features a completely different art aesthetic. The tone is, complete 180 from anything that came before it. And of course, people reacted as we would come to expect, with a lot of vitriol and the amount of harassment that Ron Gilbert got over it led to him just stop doing any kind of publicity and talking about the game on his site. And that is definitely a bad thing. And it kind of frames our topic. And this is something that we've been wanting to talk about for a while.
So bad, yeah.
In terms, again, of this double edged sword of what it means to grow and cultivate fans and fandom. But what do you think about this?
Well, I mean, it's kind of par for the course, right? Like you were saying, this is a really well-established franchise. And if you want to get a little Annie Wilkes about it, people are really like, they really covet this monkey. Like you were saying, it's one of the gold standards of adventure games. We were talking about it, I think, well, like two podcasts back about, when's the resurgence or the renaissance of adventure games coming? Well, here it comes, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're a little bit, right? And of course, fans are reacting in an adverse way because of the art style. And of course, you could go two of one ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
Would fans be happy if the art style remained the same, consistent to its original? Or would they still complain and say, well, what happened? This is the same thing? Are you simply rehashing it? Either way, you're really going to have like alienate 50% either way, right? If you're going to make a change. But yeah, it's definitely something that we need to address, and it's something as a whole, the whole gaming community needs to be aware of, and we need to really like address it in a more positive manner, right?
Mm-hmm.
If Ron Gilbert saying like, I don't even want to talk about this anymore, what did he say? He said the joy.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I said I think the joy of sharing has been driven from me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's kind of like if you reduce like the whole game dev like industry down to it, like that's kind of what we're trying to do, right? We're not doing surgeries, we're not saving lives or anything like that. We're trying to create entertainment content for people to consume. And when we're having like developers like, and I personally know lots of developers that are afraid to post things or afraid to post updates and things, because of this kind of vitriol. It's really common, right? and
Mm-hmm.
and it shouldn't be like a rite of passage, right? Like it's not a rite of passage to start getting death threats. That means, yeah, I made it in game dev. That's not what we should be looking at as a standard of breaching fandom, right?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's just what do you think, Josh? We need to address it in a certain way, don't we?
Mm-hmm. Yep, and the whole argument, someone will say, well, you just have to grow a thicker skin. Like, I
Yeah,
feel
man.
like that doesn't really fly anymore.
No.
And let me see what, yeah, to Draken's comment, the first thing, yeah, like, they do feature different art styles. So, like, the original one was kind of, like, more hand-drawn. They have featured more animated, but this one's definitely going for more, like, modern-day animation. And yeah, and then there's of course the people who just come on just to say hatred and all kinds of things. I saw a few of the comments. There were like a bunch of oh, this is just an SJW game and that kind of thing.
Wow.
And yeah, like
Wow.
that definitely doesn't have a place, especially for talking to a developer about their game.
Yeah, man. I mean, like, for one thing, like, if you come about it logically, like, so everybody that is responding or on the blogs, these are people that are vested, right, and very interested in this game. And if you're like so interested, invested, and you, I'm not sure how much respect you have for the developers or this and that or what you think they are, but if you are so vested in the game and you like it so much and you're interested in it, there's no way you should be like being that way toward the developers, right? Like a way more constructive ways about going about it. And again, like you just if I'm seeing like Ron Gilbert saying I don't want to post anymore,
Mm-hmm.
again, that's kind of an omen. You know what I mean? Corey Borlaug also just I think what was it for just recently he posted, or was it like a year ago with Alana Pierce
Mm-hmm.
when God of War was delayed and she started getting some
Mm-hmm.
messages. She was also another writer and she just joined and she started getting like death threats and stuff like that. And I mean,
Yeah.
just not good.
Yeah, and actually, Thousand Moon actually had a point I was just about to get to about when we look at how video games were marketed, especially 80s into we could probably say early to mid 2000s, it was all kind of aimed like that kind of pro corporate, pro company. You must like if you like Nintendo, then you hate Sega. If you like Sega, you must hate Nintendo. And everyone remembers, of course, the console wars, PC master race, that kind of
Yeah.
crazy marketing. And a lot of companies either allowed it or they said nothing about it. Like it was just part of how they marketed their games.
Yeah.
And
No, they actually really like back then they really kind of cultivated and it took
mhm,
to it, right? You remember, like I mean, they had us duking it out in the schoolyards. We were fighting each other about no, I got a Sega and you got a Nintendo, and there was like totally pro for that. So it was even like in its exception back then in the schoolyards, and it's just grown since then. We didn't really have the internet back then.
mhm,
We only had like Game Pros and stuff like that, Nintendo Powers and stuff. But as it's evolved, it's just gotten way more toxic. I was
mhm,
seeing Tharsmoon's comment about the hate being unwarranted, but a lot of companies has manipulated consumers' nostalgia, right? So
mhm.
that's why they're unhinged. But are we? Yeah, is Ron Gilbert really like um, manipulating your nostalgia at this point? This is an old,
Mhm.
well-established adventure game. He's coming back to the fold. You know what I mean? So it's
Yeah.
not really one of those ones. Like if you would say maybe you could definitely throw that at like Diablo Immortal or something like that, or one
Mhm.
of the Diablos, but I would feel less for this one.
Yeah. And like with this case though, and yeah, to a man is common, of course, unhinged is not good enough excuse. Nothing
Yeah.
is an excuse to, send death threats to anyone who's working on a game, who's had a hand in a game, or even they haven't had a hand in, because there are people who've gotten threats, by association. Oh, you're the second intern of the developer of something at a Naughty Dog, so you must have had a reason, why The
Yeah.
Last of Us 2 turned out this way, kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. And people, yeah, exactly. People that have no reason to be getting any of the vitriol or hatred or anything directed to them are getting that, right? And people who should be getting it, we shouldn't be directing it toward anybody. No vitriol or
Mm-hmm.
anything. Only positive, constructive criticism, art criticism, but not death threats. None of that. But yeah, people just getting, shrapnel for no reason.
Mm-hmm.
That's not cool at all.
No, it is not. And again, like, you can criticize something. Like, this is not a case of saying, oh, if you don't like something, you just shut the heck up about it. No.
No.
you can complain about something. You can say that something is bad. You can say that you don't like it. That is perfectly reasonable. The problem is when it gets personal. Again, like this is something that I say a lot about myself when I talk about games. When I talk about a game, I talk about the game. I do not mention the developers. I do not, say developers are lazy, stupid, anything like that. If I'm going to rip apart a game, I'm ripping apart the game. The developer, is over there. Like, they're not being involved in that discussion.
Exactly. And that's the way that we should be like looking at it. We're looking at something that was crafted and created, and we're dissecting the product or the content, but we're not dissecting and criticizing the developer or the persons or the human beings with families working their souls and their hearts out for these games, right?
Mm-hmm. And again, like for like my own point of view, I don't like the art style of the new Monkey Island game. Like it doesn't. It's not something that I particularly like.
Actually, just saw it right now, and I don't like it either.
Yeah. But again, like I can say I don't like this.
Yeah.
And that's the extent of my stake in this whole argument. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to be yelling at someone saying this sucks or change it. And I think, again, like, this is one of those things we talk about when it comes to fandom, that there is certainly levels of entitlement. And it's not just in the video game industry. We see this in all means of pop culture. And
movies, comics, books, everything.
Oh, yes. And as I've said before, I made a post about this. I can't stand fandom, like, in any way, shape, or form. Like, if you make a property part of your own, psyche or well-being, that is not good. I wonder if I'm one of the rare ones who feel that way, or if it's just something because of the fact that I do a lot of criticism. Like, I know not to get too, in the weeds about something. Like, even the games that I love, even whenever I have my top 10 games of the year list, I will still point out issues in my top 10. Like, this is my favorite game, I love it, but I still don't like this, and this.
Exactly. Like even Elden Ring had flaws, Josh.
Oh, no, yeah. Well, we took a 1 week break from Elden Ring and we got it back.
We got to bring it back.
And again, like, I think the Two Dragons comment about, like, Warcraft 3 Reforged, again, like, that's a really good example, again, of kind of the difference in how these things go. That with Reforged, this is legitimate issues. Like, the game was released, it wasn't working right, they changed how modding support was. Like, this is where a developer definitely went on the unethical, or at least on the lower quality side to release a game, and they got, burned for it, they got people angry about it. The same
59% Metacritic.
Yeah. The same when Batman Arkham City was released on the PC, and it was basically unplayable for a lot of people, to the point that Steam took or delisted the game until they fixed those problems. Like, if a game is released and it's been marketed incorrectly, developer lied, or if the game just literally doesn't work, you are within your right to yell, you can scream, and again, you can, raise your voice about that. But there's that line when you cross it to, okay, now I'm going to go after the developers, I'm going to dox them, and I'm going to yell and scream about them on Twitter and on any place they post publicly. That's too far. And
definitely too far.
And I understand, I think this goes back to some of the points we've talked about before, at least something I've said in previous things, that if somebody releases a shoddy product, if the product is not what was advertised, what people were talking about, you can't complain about it. You can use your options that are available. But here's the question, and as an indie developer, I want to get your thoughts on this as well as chat. Where is the line that, let's say a developer does do everything bad, the game is a lie, it doesn't work, they overpriced it, they basically did every dark side or black hat strategy under the table. How far can and should the consumer go to kind of, argue about this or fight about it?
Well, number one's with the wallet, right? Like, that's the main way that the consumer should do with their wallet, and that's the ultimate price, right?
Hmm.
Don't buy the game. Don't don't but okay, so if you want to talk about it, yeah, like we're not saying don't criticize a game, right? If a game has like, Warcraft 3 Reforged, things like that, they definitely deserve like a lot of criticism. But again, we're going to be criticizing the product and the game, and then maybe we can talk about some of the corporate hierarchy and stuff like that. But the line stops at like personal personal attacks on developers, right? We don't want to be asking for like sexual assault or physical assault or like death. None of those things
Hmm.
belong in the, that's the line, right? You can, I don't even really know if you should be like tweeting out to like devs, and it depends on the company, right? Like how big of the company it is, if it's an indie company or whatnot. But I'm not really sure that you should even be tweeting out to them personally. It depends on how open they are.
Hmm.
But I mean, the line just stops at like personal attacks, really. Like, you just that's pretty much where the line is drawn. And
Hmm.
speak with your wallet, and just no personal attacks. And I think we could, make a long YouTube essay, like you're saying yourself, how you detach yourself from it. It's the game, it's the content,
Hmm.
and you make long video essays about a game. You deconstruct everything, but never once are you attacking this developer didn't even try. They don't care. This and that. None of that's really ever mentioned, and ever really seen that in any of your dissections or anything like that. So I guess that's pretty much the line. I don't know where chat feels about that, but I think the same, right?
Hmm. Yep. And again, like you can hate a company, you can, put your anti-electronic arts or Activision tattoo on. You can, anytime a game comes out, then you just say, F to that. I don't want that. But when you go after, an employee at these companies, or anyone who, has, Activision in their title on Twitter or on LinkedIn, that is definitely, I think, beyond the pale. And here's another point about this: the idea of review bombing. This is something that I've talked about a
Yeah.
long time ago, but it begs to be mentioned here, especially with Fandom. That you don't know
Yeah.
what review bombing is when a bunch of people, in order to either send a message to a developer or punish them for whatever reason, will go to a game and just massively downvote it. They'll change positive reviews to negative. They'll just leave negative reviews. And we've seen this done in some cases, like if a developer again does something bad or unethical. But we've also seen this in cases where developer doesn't have, Chinese language as one of the translated. They don't do it if let's say a developer decides to speak out about LGBTQ plus rights, or if the developer bans people who are harassing. People will use review bombing as a way to just kind of again attack this developer. And again, this does matter. It matters to the point where Steam had to change their algorithm, that if a developer receives a massive influx of reviews, positive or negative in a short term, they'll have it as like a separate warning, just so that it doesn't affect their overall or their lifetime review.
Yeah. At first, I think when it first kind of started, I think it was a little bit innocent when they would review bomb. Most of them were kind of like legit, and so I was like, okay, well, this is a way. But then again, like you were saying, a lot of the review bombs started being for little, really small things.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe someone's personal, like the director or like a writer might have tweeted something and they didn't like that political stance or something like that, and so they'll review bomb them for that. So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, review bombing. I'm glad Steam changed the algorithm. But I don't know. Metacritic still like collects everything aggregative, right? So if you go to Metacritic, you'll still see it review bombed.
Mm-hmm. So, not sure. But yeah, like it's certainly an option that you can use, but again, it just raises that question of how much power does the consumer have over a developer? And this is again when we get to these levels of when we discuss like entitlement, that if a consumer, with something like the Monkey Island situation, or even go back to the whole, Sonic the Hedgehog movie, when like people got them to change the model.
That was
It,
wild.
yeah, again, it's one of those things that on one hand, the new model looks better. On the other hand, it's still that case of, how much do you listen to the vocal minority of, your games and such? Because again, they could have just left it alone, and we'll never know, how much that would have changed, the overall impressions of the movie. And again,
or like how much resources did they waste taken away from the movie just changing that one thing, right?
mm-hmm.
And then it's again like how much criticism do you take and change from that? And like when writers and developers feel like we're being held at the throat, right? Like we can't like, oh, I can't make this art change because that's it, So the kind of like the developer's freedom or the writer's freedom is kind of like we're kind of kneecapped in some ways like that because of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and again, it's a very tough line to walk when it comes to, again, community engagement. Because if your community tells you that they don't like something, then it should be in your best interest to make a note of that or see what you can do. But when it becomes a demand, if people are saying, you must change this, or, you're a horrible developer, I'll never buy another game again, how dare you leave it like this, that goes a different way. Because if you change it, then what does that say about, what if someone else makes a demand, next week? Do you just keep changing? When do you say no and when do you say yes?
Right. Yeah, that is a fine line to cross. I don't think Da Vinci would have even posted on Instagram. I think he would have. There was asking, would Da Vinci put an unhappy smile? Would he have changed the smile on Mona Lisa? Right? Is Mona Lisa with the Would he change the smile on it? Maybe, I don't know. But it doesn't matter. Regardless of what you post, you're always gonna find like someone that doesn't like it, right? And it's just like how much of your artistic vision do you want to bend, right? So it's like, how true do you want to stay to your artistic? I would have loved to seen that Sonic movie with the original Sonic. I think it would have been awesome, just because that was their original idea, and people didn't like it so much that it would have. I think it would have been funny to see it, right? Like, but it's like you have the original, like Ron Gilbert's like vision of the game, right? And then maybe the art needed to be changed because like pixel art is super expensive to do it the old way, like the old hand drawn pixel art. So we have to do it in a more economical fashion. Maybe they have a certain budget to work with or whatever. So there's various reasons why, right? There might have been reasons why the original Sonic was made that way. It could have been the reason that character was rigged with other characters. Who knows, right? We will never know. But again, like we need to allow the developers and the artists and the writers, sound designers, and everything to get their original vision out there. And sometimes, I feel like, how much are we changing like the original product when we have so much vitriol? Because there's devs and there's developers, and they literally are like worried and scared. Like they're like, oh man, like how can I even put this out? With like they're scared to put things out because of the toxicness out there, toxic fandom.
And yep, again, it's that tough line to walk, as Joe said. That if you're making an RPG and people say, I want to play a shooter, and go F yourself if you don't make that, there's not much you can do there. Like if you're making an RPG, you're making an RPG. This is one of the reasons why we talk again so much about the core gameplay loop. That you need a rudder, you need something to steer the course of your game. And again, there is no such thing as the 100%, everyone approves, everyone loves a single game.
Yeah, never gonna happen.
And that was one of the things I talked about when it came to discussing fun. That there is entitlement on the developer side about that chase for, if I include just this, and this, my game is perfect, and how dare someone try and argue about it? But yeah. And I think this, again, like something that we see from kind of a lot of the more, I want to say established, or some of the more longer running studios, that we do see them kind of cultivating that level of fandom. Again, like Naughty Dog has been kind of guilty of this with The Last of Us, and even some of the voice actors were like pushing, how dare you criticize The Last of Us? And I've seen so
Yeah.
many tweets of people saying, The Last of Us 2 is perfect, or no other game will be as emotionally gripping as The Last of Us. And I'm just sitting there, just like shaking my head.
I didn't even get to play it yet. I haven't played it. Like, have you played it, Josh?
No, I have not.
No. See, I mean, I'm sure it's very emotionally gripping, though.
Mm-hmm. But again, as a studio, you need to both cultivate and listen to your fans. But this is again where good community management, good
Yeah.
engagement really, pays off, or you will get punished if you don't do that.
Right. Yeah. And so like we were talking, I think like on the last one when we were talking about getting your demo ready or building a community, it starts from the beginning, right? So like if you have an active Discord, if you have an active community, and you have your ear to the ground, and you're listening to your fan base or your community that you're
Mm-hmm.
cultivating from the beginning, you'll have more of an idea, right? And it'll be a little easier to navigate the seas if you've started from the beginning and you've started cultivating a community. But of course, like we're talking about like more established, right? Like really
Mm-hmm.
long running, the long running series are way more subject to this, of course, because they're long IPs, like The Last of Us, like we were just saying, that IP is just like The Last of Us 1. I don't think anybody, like
Mm-hmm.
people who played the first one, were scared to even see a second one because the first one was perfect to them. How can you even
Mm-hmm.
touch the first one? How can you make a sequel? And then again, that's the Phantom. So of course, and that was a big debacle, like with the voice actors and just everybody involved in The Last of Us, from the directors down. There was a lot of issues when that came out.
Mm-hmm.
Just dealing with community. Yeah, Gamergate. Is that what you're talking about, Dragon? Oh
Let's see.
no.
I think
Oh
they were
no, no,
talking
no. I
about the
misread it.
Five Nights at Freddy's when the
Oh,
developer came out like that to support Republican, as despite the fact that he has a huge LGBTQ plus community there.
wow. Did not know about that.
Oh yeah, that was a fun one to go through, especially when you're. I know, like the game was also really no one donated during the when they were running the Five Nights game at GDQ this past summer or this past event.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, and again, like this is where we have that kind of the importance of community engagement, and also it again like this is that double-edged sword of it, that if people think you are one way politically, religiously, spiritually, and you either downplay it, ignore it, or even lie about it, and then it comes out you're the opposite, it
Yeah.
does feel like a betrayal. And again, this is again where we talk about extreme fandom, that there are a lot of people who treat content creators, their favorite developers, favorite influencers, whatever, as they deify them, or they treat them
Yeah.
as their actual family, a figure that's a major point in their lives. And that is definitely, I think, where we get too far. Like again, as I've
Yeah.
said, like I am anti fandom 100%.
Same here. Same here. And yeah, and that's me myself personally, like I've to Dragon's point about if anybody who's open about their political beliefs or whatever beliefs, and then people, someone on the opposite end will find out you're literally alienating like 50% of your audience, right? Or 49%. So it's like, what do you do? Do you just not say anything? And then people are going to say, well, you should speak up about this thing. It's a really hard line to toe. And me, myself, I have had a lot of issues with it, because, I have, it's just, do you post about this or not? And sometimes there's things coming up, lately that you feel like you should really speak about and you need to, and you're
Mm-hmm.
just not sure, like if you should use your platform for that because you're afraid, am I going to lose followers? And although, like, do you really want the people that are opposing you and your views
Mm-hmm.
to purchase your game, like you were so right? I don't know.
Yeah, man, that's something that I hear from a lot of people who do community management and community engagement. That, excuse me, that if you have people who are going to become aggressive and violent or attack you for your belief, then it's better or it's healthier in the long run to cull that segment of your fan base. because if
Yes.
you leave them, they're going to grow. And
Yeah.
suddenly, the people who you want to support you or who do like you, they're not going to feel, you know, they'll feel pressured to leave, or they won't feel comfortable being around your same circles.
Yeah,
And
and
it,
you'll have people pressured to leave, and then you'll have people feeling betrayed, like you were saying. So people betrayed when they find out you're never meet your heroes, you know,
mhm,
and because you know your dreams of deity will be broken. So like you know, that's just one of those things. Like, if you do cultivate a following, be careful what kind of following you're cultivating. You know, that's another thing I don't think we
mhm,
discussed here in the community. Like, be careful who you're
mhm,
getting. Like, you don't just want anybody to just follow you, or just anybody to go and espouse your game or speak about it, because they could be you know, speaking also negative things about within while they're talking about your game. You know what I mean? Like, are they
mhm,
spoken previous negative things, or that's just their content, right?
mhm. And yeah, to Dragon's comment, yeah, that's another thing that we see is that people will just use the excuse of the game to attack you for, your religious beliefs, your
Yeah.
political beliefs, anything like that. And like those people, that's an easy call. Like if someone is just attacking you, like they're not even talking about your game. We see a lot of people say, oh, this developer is just a so and so, they're just an SJW. They don't,
Yeah.
they're pushing an agenda. Like they're not even talking about the game at that point. Yeah, boot them out. Like that's
Right.
not something you want to
Right.
leave. And I think more importantly, that's not somebody that I think you're going to be able to change their mind with. Like, if someone is just, if they come to your forums and are just like, oh, this developer, is just pushing LGBTQ plus, how dare they, I don't want to play, I just want to play as a male character, F the developer, like, you can try and just say, this is my choice, this is my game, and if they still respond, you're not going to right that ship. You're not going to change that
Yeah,
direction.
you're not going to say, hold
Mm-hmm.
up, that's not my agenda at all. And they're going to be like, oh, you know what? You're right. I'm
Mm-hmm.
sorry. And then suddenly it's just going to, no, if that's
Mm-hmm.
that person's initial reaction, that's going to be their constant reaction just to something else or something different.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's how they react to things, right? And so you're getting those reactionist type people in your community. Very toxic.
Yeah. And another big point that we didn't mention yet, you should always have community guidelines for whether you're using a Discord, a Steam forum, Facebook group, Reddit, whatever. If you're trying to build a community, have some kind of rules, and do not be afraid to change the rules as things go forward. I've changed a few of the rules on the Game Wisdom Discord several times, but it's important, as whoever is in charge, to have a set of lists of one thing of having water nearby when your voice is dying, but to have a list of what you find acceptable and what you don't find. Because there's another point about this. There are some developers who are fine with their community attacking people who don't agree with their games.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's how you cultivate the toxic side of your fandom. And two, that will come back to look very negatively on you as a developer.
Exactly. And we have seen many developers like fall out of grace because of reasons like that, right? So like,
Mm-hmm.
don't forget, you know, any devs that are watching, anybody, just anybody, that you are like like if you're a developer, you are a public facing person, right? You're a public facing figure.
Mm-hmm.
And so like, you need to be aware of these things, right? So
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. I still remember one developer who, after I posted my review, I went to their Steam forum and he made a whole thread saying, "This person made a video about me. What do you think about what they said about my game?" Like I'm pretty sure he was trying to get like people to target me because of the issues I had with his game.
and did it happen? Nothing happened?
No,
Thankfully,
nothing
no.
happened at all.
Good.
I've only had, or I've checked lately, I think I've only had one attack video on me, and I don't even remember, like, it was for a game that, like, no one ended up even liking, so, like, the attack video just did, like, nothing for it.
The tag video did worse than the game.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, me, same here. Personally, I think I've probably haven't really received any personal attacks or anything yet. But
mm,
I'm not waiting either. I'm not waiting. or a personal attack. Hopefully,
Mm-hmm.
we can diffuse that, and through proper community management and rules, like you just updated your Discord rules like a week or so ago, right? A couple weeks ago, I believe. Maybe it
This
was
is
a
a
month ago.
while
I don't
ago.
know.
It's
It
hard
was
to
a
tell.
lot.
Time is all messed up around here.
I don't know what time is anymore, Josh.
We're in like one of those roguelike situations where time
That's
is
right.
has no meaning. Yep, and to
Exactly.
Mr. Game Chat, yeah, and again, it's a tough line to walk, especially with politics. You know, the old classic phrase, you never talk politics or religion with people.
Yeah.
And it is, and again, especially in today's world, let's face it, like how people talk and communicate today is very different 5, 10, 15, 20 years ago.
Yeah, like just 8 years, a big difference, big
Yeah.
massive difference. It was like if you looked at like the
Mm-hmm.
scandals from then till now, or how toxic people are from then till now,
Yeah.
it's a big difference, just this drastic change. And it's so accepted now, right? Like it's
Mm-hmm.
almost like if you look and you just pop in into various discords, someone who mentioned about the anonymity,
Yeah.
everyone's so anon now, and I think one thing to solve, probably a crazy idea, but like if we had, you know we weren't so anonymous
Mm-hmm.
online, like if we had actually had, like, I have no problem, like my picture and on all of my this, because I'm a game developer, is the same, like
Mm-hmm.
every from this to that, same for you, right? I'm there, I'm not anon anywhere on the internet, anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just me, right? So if I say anything, someone could screenshot it. If I say anything, someone could record it, anything, and I know that, and I'm aware of that. But if we could have some, I think we spoke of some kind of accountability where you just can't make death
Mm-hmm.
threats to devs. You can't just threaten sexual assault on people, and then nothing happens to you, right? And then there's a whole bunch of toxic fans behind them cheering, yeah, with pitchforks and everything. And it's so accepted now, right? Like we
Mm-hmm.
we really need to right the ship, and we need to remember that we're all playing video games. This isn't life or death. It's not your story. You know what I mean? Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you may like it, and it may be something, one of your favorite games, like you said, of all time, but it doesn't mean it's perfect and it's exactly how it is, and doesn't deserve criticism. Or on the other hand, that there's no reason that a dev or a writer or a sound designer or a graphics artist or anybody or a PR manager should get death threats, hate, vitriol, etc. Because
Mm-hmm.
again, this is about, like, we're trying to have fun and enjoy. This is content, and this is not life or death, right? And we
Yep.
don't want to make it about life or death.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And to Mr. Game and Chat, again, like that is again one of the double-edged swords of fandom. That who do you listen to when you're building a game? Do you listen to the people who are demanding you to change something, or if they don't like it? Or do you listen to people like, no, leave it be, don't say anything? And it is again, I think ultimately this is one of the major points, is that you are unfortunately damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like,
Right.
you can't, like we look at video games as a way of like min maxing and trying to make everything perfect. Unfortunately, that's not how things work in real life. You're
Right.
never going to achieve, perfect 50-50 balance, everyone is completely neutral to all your opinions. And this is definitely not like Fable, where you can just like go out and then if you need to change your morality slider, just give like an orphan $50, or beat up a bunch of chickens and keep the
It is.
scales perfectly aligned. And
Yeah, man.
eventually, and I think this is something that this is, I think, a very important thing as a developer we need to understand, is that how your opinions, whether they are political, religious, anything along those lines, it may come to that point where you are going to draw that line in the sand
Yep.
and say,
Yep.
I am in support of this, this, and this. I do not support this, this, and this.
Yep.
And you're going to have people who are going to love you for that, and you're going to have people who are going to hate you for that. And
Definitely.
unfortunately, it is one of those cases where you're going to have to decide, do I keep the people who hate me around, Or do I just say, if you don't like this about me, there's the door? Like,
Right.
again,
Do
like,
you need the hate blood money that much, or
mm-hmm,
do you want a nice happy community that's going to foster a better happy community in the long run? Because like if you have toxic dudes or toxic people in your community, they're like we
mm-hmm,
said, they're going to push the good ones out, right? And so like you're right about that. You do kind of have to draw the line in the sand. You can't really be like you can't fully be a centrist about everything. Um, because there are sides that you'll stand on. If you don't, cool, right? But if you do, then that has you probably you're probably right about that. That you do have to kind of draw that line because otherwise they're going to be there and then it's going to be like wow all these people hate me and
mm-hmm,
then only have to much so eventually you do have to draw the line. You are correct about that, Josh. You got it.
yeah. And again, from a community standpoint, you also have to, and I think this is another point we didn't mention yet, that criticism is not harassment. That if you say you don't like a game or you don't agree that, let's say you don't like an art style or you find this game to be too difficult. As a developer, that's not your cue to take that as harassment or attacking someone. Again, we've
Yeah.
had those stories of developers saying it's not my fault. It's a consumer's problem that they don't like my game or they find it too difficult and that kind of thing. And we've
Yeah.
seen developers, again, the echo chamber effect is certainly real. That
Very
they
real.
will shut down anything, whether it's up there as this developer is an idiot, I hate them, to I found this game too difficult or I didn't like the section, and they view both of those as the same level of harassment, and that's something that you shouldn't do.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, when when you put your game out there, your game is open to criticism,
Mm-hmm.
to attack. Like that's just the way it is, right? And so one thing is like definitely you don't want to be like that is not harassment. Like if someone came up to me and they were like, "You know what, Josh, Samurai Pig is
Mm-hmm.
terrible. It's horrible." I'd be like, "Oh, okay, I understand. Tell me why. Why is it terrible, horrible? What did I do wrong? This or that. I'll read your review or this or that." But I'm not going to take it like personally, like that's an attack on me. It's just an attack on, not an attack. It's just, decisions that were made in the game for various reasons and this or that. But again, like you don't, like a lot of devs do take it. This is my baby. And
Mm-hmm.
when they're talking about the game, they do view that as harassment. And it's not. Again, that is not. Again, we're talking about harassment like when people are talking, lives, you know,
Mm-hmm.
death threats, things of that nature, personally attacking people, etc.
Yeah. And to a thousand's comment, exactly, you don't have to get political, but if you do get, and we know developers who definitely draw that line in the sand, they put that flag down to where they lean, that is not justification as a consumer to then attack them for it. I know Kid Fox has received a lot
Yeah.
of nasty things about being very much supportive of LGBTQ plus
LGBT.
communities and rights there. Just
Yeah.
as, again, a lot of people attacked Scott Cawthon for his viewpoints. And again, I think this goes back to, I'm not sure if if there's a phrasing in this, but you can hate a company, all day long, but you shouldn't then, target that hatred towards the employees of that company.
Yeah.
At least, again, like
Exactly.
if we're talking about, major companies, like with an independent studio, one person could make up half the entire company. If we're talking about like Rockstar Studios or Blizzard, attacking that texture artist because you don't like the company's support or company's thoughts on loot boxes, that's not doing anything. That's not you trying to elicit change. That's you trying to punch someone because you feel like punching them.
Right. And it was like the first person you could find a punch, right? And the
Mm-hmm.
texture artist didn't have a choice in that loot box still.
Mm-hmm.
Sadly. Um yeah. Yeah, but like even in this day, they're saying like about political like everything can kind of be taken politically now,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like we're in a different time now. We're like politics are little people are like yeah, everything is political in a way and like someone may not be taking a political stance like in a political stance, but like anything someone says can be taken political because in a way life is politics, right? Like
Yeah.
everything about life is politics, sadly. And it's not something we want to be talking about, but it is true. So
Yeah. And the other point about this again is that a lot of people will argue politics when it's something they don't agree with. They're fine with a
right.
game being political if it's something that they 100% support. They're fine with this. And again, this goes back to how you manage your communities. If you say that you support X, Y, and Z, and you are, that is your belief 100% of the way, and there are people who will then immediately attack you for that, you're going to have to make that decision. I think, as Josh said earlier, how much is, that, rolling them up money or that dark money worth it
Yep.
to you at the end of the day?
Yeah, the blood hate money, toxic
Yeah.
hate money. You
Mm-hmm.
got to clean it off. There's a lot of you got to get all that toxins, and you got to make sure it's still radiating. It's a lot of work.
Mm-hmm. And again, it's also why something that we talk about here with like having personas online and hiding behind them, that it's only healthier just to be yourself,
Yeah,
good, bad, and everything in between.
that's
Because again,
right.
everyone is going to find, someone will find a reason to hate you. It will happen no matter what, but you can't let that drag you down.
Yeah, yeah. Like you were saying, Josh. You can there. It is there will never be a perfect game that meets everybody's like. This is my perfect game. It's politically awesome. It's gender awesome. It's like awesome in all the ways. It's just not possible, right? So no matter what, whatever you release, whatever you say, whatever you do, you're going to have people that are going to go against you. Just because you're saying something, people are going to say, "Don't talk," right? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, you said something. Why'd you say that? So no matter what, you just have to be ready. And then when we're talking about, go back a second, when we're talking about like how much do you change, right? And again,
Mm-hmm.
that's going back to like make sure you got a good QA and you got PR and you have everything and
Mm-hmm.
you know your vision and you have everything locked down in your gameplay loop and stuff like that. So everything is there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then when you're making all the little changes and stuff like that, you have from in-house your QA teams like, okay, well, this and that, and you have some facts from inside, right?
Mm-hmm.
That'll be a little more helpful to help you navigate that.
Yeah. And if you decide to change as you grow as a developer, as you move forward in terms of your understanding of how things work, or even if your own religious and political viewpoints change, as a developer, as a studio, that will be reflected on you for good and for ill. Because we've seen some people, again, this goes back to some of the fandom, that if you change in any way, if you deviate from how you were 35 years ago in just
Yeah.
1%, then,
Yep.
you're being bought, you're being corrupted, it's not your vision anymore, you're disrupting the whole thing. And again, I feel like that again is going too far in terms of fandom's chain around your game.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. It's Highlander Pony.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Definitely a life lesson, Pony. Just kind of pick your poison, but it's true.
Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to think like where else in terms of this discussion, but again, like community management is very important. You should, as a developer, again, it is within your right to change your game. We've talked about again like a lot of game dev is about growing and iterating and knowing
Yeah.
again where to hold and where to bend. And it is a tough lesson to have because you'll be in that position. I'm sure every indie developer has had that point where do I just listen 100% to every single feedback that comes my way? Regardless, someone says, I hate circles in your games, get rid of them. Well, I hate squares, add more circles. I want numbers, put numbers in your game.
Why are there colors?
Yeah. And if you listen to everyone, you're not going to have a good vision of your title. And I think again, like the one of the major points for our discussion, you need to draw that line in the sand somewhere as a developer. Whether it is a small line saying, I will change all of this, but this is locked. This will never change. Do not argue it. Do not try to, any debates is not going to change his mind. And you need to be able to have those rules for yourself, for your game, and for your company.
Very true. Very true. I started laughing at Pony's comment again. I forgot.
What is CR? I'm not sure.
Yeah, I don't know what CR. Crunchyroll?
It can mean a lot of things these days. That's the thing.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but like, okay, so like, again, like, make sure, like, when you're creating a game, making a game's all about iteration. Iteration is the name of the game, right? You're constantly iterating that code, iterating your art, iterating everything. But remember, like, what you started with at the beginning, you had a vision. Hopefully, you had a vision, and you're going to want to stick to that vision and not deviate too much with it, right? So, yeah, definitely want to draw a line in the sand, like you said. Make sure this is what I'm going to do. This is what the game's going to be. Maybe I can make some concessions here and there. But if you listen to like what everybody's saying, okay, well, I want circles, I want triangles. Your game's just going to be a bunch of circles and triangles, and it's going to be so muddy, and it's not going to have any like congruence to it or anything at all. No vision, and it's going to be so muddied down by the time you put it out, and everybody's going. And then everybody that put in their input, they're not going to say, "Well, I'm glad he put circles in there now because it rules." It's not going to make the game better, right? Like. So you definitely have to like stick to your vision and push forward with that, and then be ready to make concessions and listen, of course, to your QA and stuff like that. But I think you should definitely stick to your vision because it's your vision, right? It's what you're working on. I'm not saying it's your baby and you don't want to not have any people criticizing it in any way, form, or fashion. That's the name of the game. But again, just staying true to your vision is probably your best bet. And again, be yourself, right? Is one of the main things that Josh was saying about is like, again, as a developer, being yourself is the safest bet, right? You don't want to be hiding things like certain ideas you have in your head or things that personal beliefs, you don't want to keep them back because again, 10 years down the line, when you accidentally say something, or you tweet it, you're going to cause a whole like lose fans and people will, oh, I can't believe that he believed in that this whole time. I'm never buying his game again. I can't believe I'm at my idol. Stuff like that. So just be careful, right? And definitely be yourself, right?
Yeah. And to Thousand's comment about having politics in games, again, it is the developer's discretion to do that or not to do that. And as the consumer, again, as Josh said earlier, that your main way of, expressing your opinion is through your wallet. If you don't like a game for whatever reason, you are free to not buy that game. You do not have to engage with every single game that comes out. And again, I think this is one of those things that we kind of see from entitlement from both sides. Again, that everyone wants that game that everyone needs to play, and there are consumers who feel like this game is perfect. It must be perfectly catered to me, and if it's not, it's a trash game, and I hate it, and all that. They're not really well in terms of building community and about approaching things in terms of design. You need to have, at the end of the day, is the developer's responsibility, and it is their right to make the kind of game they want, whether you like, dislike, hate, or worship it.
Exactly, Josh. And then again, one more time, like it's not like we're not talking about like it is their prerogative, the developer's prerogative to have politics, but again, anything can be considered political in a game. Violence can be considered but the violence in the game is political, the gender in the game is political. The subject matter, everything in a game can be considered political. So we're not like just saying, okay, we're talking about politics in this fashion. We're talking all of life, period, is politics or political.
And this also leads into how the game is marketed. that if you want to make a game that is 100% political, that is, let's say, is super anti LGBTQ plus rights, if you hate everyone, you are within your right to make that game. If you only get, let's say, 100 copies sold because everyone finds that offensive and they don't want to play it, that's also right. You can't say, well, I'm being silenced because I wanted to make this game. No, people just don't want to agree with it. They don't want to support that game. And again, ultimately, this is one of those things that the market will drive these discussions. That there are a lot of games on Steam that are adults only and are very, very racy and sexualized and stuff that we can't mention here or YouTube will have a fit. And there are people who buy those games. Is it the same amount of people who buy, let's say, Hades or Dusk or Disco Elysium? Yep. No. Definitely not. They are not getting those numbers. And again, that is all right. If you don't want to engage with something, you don't have to support it. And as a developer, you are not within your responsibility to then say, oh, how dare people not buy my game that's all about, this kind of thing. I'm being silenced and, it's the 1984 and all that.
Again, Pony brought up a good point. They were talking about not all games are, Pong didn't have politics, but Pong, is left and right.
Okay, that gets a point for the joke right there.
That's a point.
You get a joke points right there, Pony, for that one. And to I think Draken's comment, personalization is a very huge minefield depending upon the game. If you remember, Nintendo received backlash for now allowing for same-sex relationships and marriages in a lot of their games. And as a developer, it is something you have to realize that personalization is also a matter of representation. If you're saying, build any character you want, and you only have, let's say, 4 skin tones of white in your game, that is saying something.
Or the dark colors don't render, they're so dark you can't even see the character. Yeah.
And again, it is one of those things you have to walk as a developer, because you will have people who will say, don't change it or we're going to hate you. And people will say, change it or we're going to hate you. And you're going to have to kind of figure out where things go. As a kind of minor example of this kind of outrage, that game Soldiers that I played on stream earlier back in June, that it was released and it had a lot of quality of life and difficulty spiking issues. And there are people who loved it for that, who've said, oh, the game was too easy for me, make it harder. And when we look at the churn rates, it goes from 100 to 60 to 20 to 10 within an hour to 2 hours of play. So that is definitely a minority. So they change it, they rebalance the game, and now we have people saying, you broke this game, it's too easy, I'm not having fun, how dare you change it, you change it too much, and all that. And again, this goes back to having some kind of moral compass or, studio, mandate or studio rule set for how you want to approach things. Because at the end of the day, if you keep changing, if you just go, 180 this way, then 180 back that way, and then go another way, you're not going to appeal to everyone. And like we said, at the end of the day, you're never going to have 100% approval of everything that you do. It's just impossible.
Yeah, never gonna happen. And again, and again, giving in to every demand to change the game, like I was saying, you're gonna end up with a very muddy product, and people will be able to tell that you didn't follow your original vision and you just listen to everyone else. So too many cooks in the kitchen, and it's not gonna taste very good.
Yeah. And again, with the Soldiers example, we can point to empirical evidence that there was an issue. That when we see churn rates go that far, and I can actually pull things up really fast if Steam decides to load, it goes 40% of the player base literally stopped playing before they even died. Like, they even get a death and they stopped playing the game.
Wow.
And then the first boss fight has is 48%. So that's about 2 hours of play, and they lost 52% of the people who played the game. So something is not right. There is a balance issue. But again, as a developer, it's your job to solve that mystery. And we're kind of getting outside of fandom, but it is. But again, like, this is that challenge of who do you listen to? And what is good feedback and what is bad feedback? You know, if someone says, I don't like your game because you feature LGBTQ plus characters, you're not really going to find a middle ground there.
Right.
If someone says, I like your game, but I want more personalization, you know, that's a different story. And you can, again, this is also where diplomacy and communication comes in. That, let's say someone says, I want you to add 50 more body types and 30 different skin colors and, you know, 27 more clothing options to your game. And you say, well, I can do that, but, you know, I'm a small developer. I don't have the options for that. Right. That is a different story than saying, shut the heck up. Why the hell are you contacting me? Get the F out of my Discord. I don't ever want to hear you from ever again.
Exactly. Yeah.
And don't say that on your Discord as a developer. There's another Josh pro tip right there.
Yeah. Like I was saying, also, here, it's not fandom, but just like, you know, when you're online, your presence, whatever you say, can and will be used against you, right? So like, make sure whatever you're tweeting, whatever you're discording, whatever you're saying, you can back it up, and just don't just rage out on people when they're coming at you at your game. You know, have open discourses in a positive manner. If you have a Discord and people are talking about your game, of course, when we're talking about, you know, like I said, they're going negative just immediately. I hate you. I hate your game. Everything about you. Well, there's nothing that can meet, right? There's no middle ground in I hate you and I hate everything about you. There's not a middle ground to that, right?
I still remember the advice one of the developers from Clay gave me. This is like many, many years ago, about how he dealt with community engagement. And his rule was he would always wait at least 30 minutes from seeing a forum post before he would respond to it.
Yes.
Because he did not want to say anything in the heat of the moment.
Yes, that is a really good point. And I have done that myself. I have sat there and I've started typing up a response. And then before I pressed enter, I would sit back and I read it and I said, do I really want to say this? Do I want this to be out there? So I've done that. But yeah, 30 minutes, that's a great rule. You know, definitely count to 10, right? Like, take a deep breath and count to 10, count to 4, and before you react, don't immediately react. And before you respond to things, you know, don't jump onto Twitter and start insta ranting back at people. Definitely think about it and think about like your career and how long you want to be in it, because all that affects it.
Yeah. And to a Thousand Moons comment, that is another big point. Again, like, politics, much like a face cam reveal for YouTube, is something that you can't put that genie back in the bottle. If you want to promote yourself as super heavy politics, whatever way you want, again, you are drawing that line in the sand. You're drawing it with concrete at that point. Right. And you can't then say, let's say 6 months down the line, oh, I was just kidding, or, you know, why you hate me because I support this, or if I don't support that. That developer of that Gladiator sim game who, like, just like a complete lesson of how to destroy your company. Like, he was like posting these like weird things about, you know, denying COVID and masculinity in his patch notes. Like, that was just like, well, I'm sure you got some fans, but I think you kind of burned the rest of the bridge and you salted the earth at the same time.
Right, definitely. It is wild. Like, to see, you can see some devs like destroying their career
Mm-hmm.
in the matter of moments.
Yeah. To Mr. Game and Chat, yeah, again, like that's when we had fandoms interacting with each other. Like this goes back to the console wars and that whole thing from back at the start of this discussion. That and this has come out that the major companies, they're not fighting with each other. They don't, Nintendo does not have, voodoo dolls of Sony and Microsoft,
Nope.
with like a bunch of needles and being lit. Microsoft does not care, if people play on Sony or play on a Nintendo console. It is very much about, and it's the same thing with the independent space, that, most developers, or the ones that are good, they don't care if you're buying another game or if you're buying other platformers or racing games or
Nope.
whatever.
Nope.
But as a from a community standpoint, you need to say, you know, don't attack another studio. Don't attack somebody because they don't like my game. Again, if someone says, I played a Mario platformer and I found more responsive than your game, okay, that's fair criticism. If
Right
they
on.
come in and say, I think Mario is the best platformer and your game is a POS and, just stop working on games,
Stop being a game dev. What are you doing?
again, as we said, that's not a point of, that's not you going to the negotiation table at that
Right.
point.
Right, definitely. Yeah, so again, like that's another point to like keep in mind, right? Like when
Mhm.
people are coming at you with criticism, is there like a middle ground, or is there like can you negotiate with what they're
Mhm.
bringing to the table? If it's non-negotiable, well then that's probably nothing you should listen to, right? That's probably a
Mhm.
really easy way to do it. Can we negotiate with this? Can we just, or is this just a yes or black and white issue that there's no way we can meet in the center about anything? Then yeah,
Yeah.
definitely maybe.
And yeah, like to trying something about wrestling, football is a very big point as well. I'm here in New Jersey. It's really close to Philadelphia with the Eagles. And if anyone who knows football knows that Eagles fans aren't exactly the most calm and rational when they talk about their team, or when they trash the town when they won the Super Bowl. They
Yeah,
destroyed the
yeah.
town when they
Destroyed
won.
when they won. They destroyed the town.
What if they lost? That's the question right there. And again, it all comes back to how you handle these discussions. There's a difference between saying, I can't make a female character in my game because, let's say, I'm not good enough artist or I don't have the resources. Versus, the Ubisoft example of, women are just incredibly hard to animate. They're mysterious and
Yeah, mysterious. We don't understand how to animate a woman.
yeah.
I
And
forgot about that one, Josh.
yeah. And as a developer, especially as an indie developer, you're going to have people who are going to compare your game. Well, so and so has 8,000 character models and they did it all within, 6 months of release. So why can't you be just like them? Again, you can negotiate to some point, but it really will come down to how you explain that, my process is different. And
Yeah.
people are going to like and dislike your answer. There, as we've said, like the kind of through line through our discussion is that no matter what you say and do, there are going to be people who will love and hate you for it.
Yep.
But it's going to come down to where you draw that line in the sand in terms of community engagement and what you feel is acceptable and unacceptable behavior, because that is going to drive your fans. As I think that's another important point. For major companies, or any companies in particular, you need to stamp out toxic behavior, even if it's toxic positivity. Like if someone says, "Oh, I love your game," and everyone else is horrible, and they're just a bunch of horrible people, and I hate them. You need to stop that as well, because toxic fandom cuts both ways. People
Yeah.
who absolutely hate everything that you do, and people who become fanatics about what you do.
Right. And man, uh again, Annie Wilkes, is it Annie Wilkinson for Misery?
Mm-hmm.
When that's like I want, yeah, toxic fandom. That's, so you can have people like that in your Discord. Be careful.
Mm-hmm. And oh yeah, to Game Chat's point, how about how many games have been compared to a Metroidvania? How many games have been compared to Doom and to The
Yeah,
Witcher? And pick any major name. You will have people say, "Oh, this is just a clone." And again, you some of them are just trolling. They will just come in, say
there's just trolls. Yeah,
like there are people who just come in the forum and say, I hate every female character in your game, and then they'll just leave, and everyone will jump on that post, and that person will just never respond. They've gone on
they're
vacation.
gone. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and like you, so that's why you have to stomp that out, because you can't let it happen and continue to happen, because it'll just grow. Like, if, like you said, one person will post and everybody will come in behind it with the torches and everything,
Mm-hmm.
and unless you stop that, you're just going to foster it, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so that's
Yeah. And again, like to the wrestling to the sports comments, like this has been long rooted, and I don't know, other than just a major shakeup, how they will address that level of toxicity. Because I don't think sports teams like the Dallas Cowboys or again the Philadelphia Eagles really care if their fans are breaking their towns or beating up people because they don't like their favorite team.
right. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's like really ingrained in like sports, and like, they're bringing up wrestling. It's really ingrained,
Mm-hmm.
like in the same thing, with, certain fans of AEW or WWE, like, like we were talking about earlier. But yeah, especially in sports, it's really ingrained and almost kind of accepted, and see it, and it's gotten to that way in like game dev and other fandom areas, is that it's accepted, and it's almost like, if people don't behave that way, like it's just
Mm-hmm.
accepted for people to react that way and to behave that way.
Mm-hmm.
Again, I don't know how we can put the genie back in the bottle or go back,
Yeah.
Josh. I really don't know what we need to do. Like, we just have to have everybody watching Game Wisdom. I think that's the only thing we can
Mm-hmm.
do. Once everybody's watching it, we'll all be
And buy
happy. Everybody
multiple
will be,
copies of all the books I
all the
do.
books, exactly. The
Exactly.
By Samurai Pig. Everybody will be great. We'll all
Yeah. And again, as a developer, I think this is another major point. We're about an hour 10, so I think we'll probably wrap things up in the next few minutes. Saying nothing is still giving your support one way or the other. If
yeah,
someone comes on your forum and starts trashing everyone because if they trash them in favor of your game, if someone says I don't like this game, and you have someone say, well, shut the f up, get out of here, you're not a true fan. If you don't say anything, you are passively agreeing with that. You're
right.
implicitly supporting that or implicitly not supporting something. If, let's say, you don't like a certain thing.
That's right. Yeah, like saying nothing is just as bad as saying, well, not just as bad. It's the same thing, right? As not saying, like not taking a stance.
Mm-hmm.
You can't not say anything, right? If it's in your community, it's in your community, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so, as a community manager, PR, whoever you have in there, you need, the guidelines need to be set. Neat actions need to be taken, and you can't foster that. And saying nothing at all is the same thing as fostering it and allowing it to come in, right? And allowing it to grow and breed in your community. So definitely say
Mm-hmm.
something, step up, if you don't want that type of behavior. If you want that behavior in your community, that's fine. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
don't think you really want that, but if you did, you need to say something, right? Saying nothing is just as bad.
Yeah. And again, you're going to have to deal where the chips fall with whatever you
Yep.
say. And this
Yep.
is, again, why, as a developer, it can be worth it to have a community manager or have
Yes.
someone from outside your fandom, of course, do
Yes.
community management and come in and organize these things.
Yeah.
And as a developer, if you see them being attacked, you have to, you have to stake your claim there. You have to plant that flag that this is not acceptable. And this is again why it's very tricky when we talk about people who try to have, everyone liking them. That you are going to offend someone, whether you intended to or not. and you're going to have to deal with that. And if
Yeah.
you can't, then get someone who can manage your community, and you support what they say.
Exactly. And then again, like if you're trying, I'm trying to think of the word when someone's just like trying to please everybody in all sides. And what happens is instead of someone coming through with conviction and who they are and believing, they end up just being really almost like a politician, right? Really wishy-washy and just saying what people want to hear at that moment, right? Instead of being yourself. So really be careful with that, right? Like you're never going to make anybody, you can't make everybody happy all the time. Stick to your values, what you want to do, what you want to talk about. But trying to please everyone is going to end up like making you yourself watered down, and then people will believe less in what you say because they'll be like, wait, didn't you just say this and now you're saying this? So again, like, don't water yourself down, don't water your vision down. um, Stick to your vision, have a community manager. If you can't do it yourself, draw a line in the sand, say something. Saying nothing is the same thing, right? And because like yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And if you, again, not saying something is still saying something, whether you want
Yeah.
to or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, man.
Yeah, until a dragon's come. Yeah, you don't want to just try to appease whoever is screaming the loudest at a moment.
Right. Right. They become weasels. Okay, is that the word? Weasels. So don't be a weasel. Be yourself and be true to who you are, right?
Mm-hmm. So I think with that, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Any other topics that come to your mind before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I think we've kind of covered it. Let's see here. No, I think we covered most of it already, unless anybody in chat has something else. Or
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of comments earlier. See if I missed one.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were checking now. I guess just to summarize, to like, kind of put like a bow on all this. Again, you need to have a guide or how you want to engage with your community. If you can't do things, have a community management. Again, silence is still giving approval or disapproval, depending upon what the topic is. And again, people are going to hate and love your decisions no matter what you do. And how you explain things, how you discuss things, is going to affect that. But again, at the end of the day, if someone is just too toxic, if if you're at the negotiation table and they're coming at you with an axe, there's no, at that point you're going to have to cut ties, whether it is a long-standing member or not, because at the end of the day, how you respond to this is going to reflect you and your company going forward. And for a lot of smaller developers, this can be those moments where all that you create that negative press, that negative marketing around your game.
Yeah, definitely. And Josh, you summed it up perfectly. And all I can say is, be yourself, right? Totally be yourself, like you stated earlier. You have to be real about who you are. People can tell, right? People have the fake detector, and they can tell when you're not being real, when you're not being yourself. People are really good at it. So just be yourself. Be honest about everything. Be transparent. And I think that's everything that you've covered, that you said, Josh. But also, like, when you're out at, everything you say on Twitter, everything you say in Discord, everything can be screenshotted, it can be used, and it will be used against you. So just be aware of that, and just be yourself, be real, and I think we'll be great.
Yeah, and especially don't try to lie to appeal to everyone, because again, the internet is the universal archival. They will, if you are revealed that you've been lying about something for a long time, or if you've been saying you support this when secretly you don't, it will come out. And that can, as with something like with the Five Nights at Freddy's discussion, that can be a killer when it comes to the branding and marketing of yourself and your games.
What was the guy with the VR headset? What was his name? John? Anyway, I'll remember next time.
Separating the art from the artist. Again, that I think is its own topic. I don't think we have the time to delve too much into that, but that could definitely be something to discuss in a later episode.
For sure, that could be definitely something we
In
can talk
case
about.
McCree with almost rename. And again, like, it is the developer's discretion to change things, whether you agree with it or not. And again, that gets back at the fandom side, that if the developer changes something, you can say you disagree with it, you can argue about it, but you can't then issue death threats and stalk people because you don't like a decision.
Right.
And again, if you don't... I was just going to say, and if you don't like a decision, don't buy the game.
That's right. With your wallet. Use your wallet first, and then afterwards, no death threats, no personal attacks. Remember, developers are human beings with families. We're humans, just like you. So don't forget that. Just try when you're gonna tweet something at a developer or someone personally. Just remember that. Try and keep that in mind. I know it's hard because of anonymity, but just remember that we're all human and we're game developers, and we're trying to make something for you, right? Like, we're trying to make a product or content for develop for people to play and enjoy. So that's really the end game and the goal. So.
All right. So I think with that, wallet OP, indeed. I think with that, we will wrap things up for this week's topic. As always, let us know what you think in the comments down below. Do the liking, subscribing, commenting. You'll find links to my stuff, as well as where you can follow me up there on the overlay.
Yep, and same for me. My links are down below. Follow me on Twitter, watch me on Twitch, and Wishlist Samurai Pig. Buy all of Josh's books. Join the Discord, and I will see you next time.
Yep, we will be back next Saturday around 5 p.m. ET for the show. And as always, come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. Have a great weekend, and see everyone next time.